What's up, people? Welcome to a very special edition of the Eastern Lariat. I'm your host, Dylan Fox. And this show is completely another one-topic episode, much like the Stardom 5-star Grand Prix review I did with Sandre. A lot of people said some nice things about that, so hopefully you guys all enjoyed that if you checked it out, if you're into Stardom. But this time, I've got someone with me again, a special guest, an expert in the promotion. There's nobody I'd rather talk to about Pro Wrestling Noah than somebody who I consider a dear friend, first and foremost, but secondly, a total expert and a true fan of the company, of the formerly green rings and currently green logo. I am joined by a multi-time championship award level author, Dr. Jonathan Foye, all the way from Australia. All of the time that we spent apart, and we are back again, my friend.
Yeah, it's just been way too long, I think, since I've been on one of these. We were talking before, and I don't think we meant for it to be quite as long as it ended up being there. But yeah, good to be back on. Good to be catching up with you. Really looking forward to this tournament.
The fans miss you too. You know, you always bring the goods when you're on, whether it's tournament previews, Noah Love, the video game episode we did on the Patreon. That's definitely worth the $5 submission alone to listen to our video game episode that we did. All the Muda stuff we did as well, obviously. And all of your books that you've done. You are like truly one of the most intelligent people in wrestling coverage, that there is. And I'm really proud and honored whenever you take the time to come on and talk to me. So we're in your wheelhouse once again with Noah. This time, the N1 Victory 2025 is upon us again, coming up in just a few days. It's starting on the 8th. So everybody should have a lot of fun following that tournament. And we're here to talk about it. We're going to give a full preview. I really wanted to go once again in our history that me and you have had. Dean was on last year. A shout out to Dino. Like I said, I know that he's kind of taken a back seat to wrestling. He's the one who got me into Magic the Gathering, though. So big shout out to Dean if he's listening to this right now on there. I finally got enough to complete a commander deck in MTG. So I'm really doing good things, big things with all my Final Fantasy cards in my Magic. But we're here to talk about Noah this year, and as usual, we make our predictions. I'm sure that you've got things kind of planned out. If you're like me, because I do. I picked every match already, and I'm just going to announce to the listeners when we get there. How are you feeling, A, about your predictions, and B, about the tournament as a whole?
I'll go in reverse order. So I'm really looking forward to the tournament, like a lot. Like anyone else, I think I was a bit disappointed by this year's G1. I think I was more positive about the final than a lot of people were, but definitely felt like there was something more that I was lacking, something in terms of match quality overall. I think Noah's N1 Victory, the nice thing about this tournament, a lot of the time it's a lot smaller in terms of the field, and from just these matchups and from on paper, this looks like a pretty strong tournament. I think sort of seeing kind of who's going to be here, I think it's pretty solid overall. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I've been to this tournament before in 2023 when the G1 was on around the same time, but it's really nice that they've moved this as well outside the G1. I've been saying for years I wanted all the companies to at least think about trying to schedule things where you're not up against the other tournaments. It's hard enough to follow these as is, but yeah, so look, I look forward to this. I feel relatively okay with my picks. Like, I think I've definitely got here a prediction that is very much where I think they're going with this. It's not necessarily where I want them to be heading. I'll just say that from the get-go here. But yeah, I've definitely got in mind where I believe the company is headed rather than what I would personally book. A lot of the time when you and I do these things, I end up fantasy booking or end up going with, this is who I hope wins. I don't think that's going to be the case in this instance.
In some cases, we even have shows where there's 4 straight draws. in them as well. Back in the good old days.
That's one of the cities there. There was some city that was never going to watch pro wrestling again because the wars that happened.
Dylan burned down the town with his booking on there. He had 3 draws in a row. Oh my god. But yeah, you could shout out to the Patreon, patreon.com/Eastern Lariat. All of those are archived. The reviews we did when you were at the show live as well. You came back and talked to me about it. The best place that you wanted to be, for sure. But everybody check those out in the archive. We always have those all of the years and stuff. And we are going to get into our predictions. But before we do that, I want to give a brief rundown of the tournament and talk a little bit about the participants in here. I got a lot of good comments. People asking me about, hey, Dylan, are you guys going to do an N1 show? I'm really into it. I'm a new viewer to Noah. I just got started watching a few months ago, and I think you could really help out if you preview this. I'm like, yeah, man, I want to do that. So I want to give a little bit of backstory for everybody and kind of where we're at with them going in right now. So first of all, I'll run down the tournament, and then you can jump in, and we start talking about guys one by one. So in A block, we have the block that features Kenta, who is currently the champion. Right now, the GHC heavyweight champion. He's the main prize. They've alternated back and forth with N1. There's no real special rules that aren't in the tournament. Other tournaments, really, 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 30-minute time limit. Like nothing too crazy or anything like that. It's just going to be a final, though. No semifinals or anything like that. So that's how we the rules are pretty straightforward. Kenta's the world champion. He's an A block. Kaito Kiyomiya, Manabu Soya, Oko Sasaki, Kazuyuki Fujita, Tetsuya Endo, Masaki Tamiya, and Daga. So, John, when we're talking about this A block, what do you think of it overall? Are you interested in this? Do you think this is a good block? Just purely as a fan, never mind booking or who wins and loses. What do you think of the block here?
I think this is an intriguing block. I think, looking at some of these matches and some of the people they've booked here, we'll get into it in just a little bit, but they've got Fujita in this year, and that's always surely this guy's going to win, right? Like the way that they book Fujita's matches and stuff in this company. Yeah. So that's intriguing. Like, how do they get past that? How do they kind of have him not win this tournament? Or kind of how do they book the champion in this particular block with these people he's up against? I have a couple of ideas about kind of, you use a tournament like this usually to set up not just one match, but several matches down the line, right? So, yeah, I suspect that you're going to see them very much use this block to set up some of those future matches. And definitely from here, I can see a couple that kind of scream future title prospects. So, yeah, I think it's an intriguing first block here as far as block A goes.
Yeah, me too. From a fan perspective, I'm pretty into this block. I think that they've got a lot of really quality matches. From a work rate standpoint, I think you've got some great linchpins here with Kaito and Endo specifically. I personally am a huge fan of Oka as well. Stylistically, he's somebody that always appeals to me. And Kenta's on a really good run as champion. I know the last title match of his versus Marufuji was a little controversial. We'll get to him in B block. But overall, Kenta's been a big net positive. He was my pick for most improved of 2025 in the half-year awards as well in the Eastern Lariat. So we'll talk more about the individual guys in a second. But first, we'll cover B block. And in that block, you've got Galeno, who's currently the national champion, Naomichi Marufuji, Keno, Daiki Inaba, Jack Morris, Harutoki, Ricky Knight Jr., who's the big foreigner this year, coming in from England, and Ozawa, who is the former GHC champion. Keno as well, although his reign only lasted 1 day, to be fair. So you've got 2 former champions here. Marufuji's a legend. Galeno's the secondary champion, and Ricky Knight is the big foreign guy. What do you think about this block here, Jonathan?
It's another intriguing block, but it's not, I dare say, like A block from just a sheer quality standpoint, from a, the matches you look forward to kind of standpoint. is the one that stands out a lot more to me. Definitely
I
looking
agree.
more to A Block, but this has some intrigue to it. Like, you know, I love like Inaba has had some great matches recently, like that brief tag run that he was in, and definitely interested to see, you know, kind of where they go with some of these matchups. Like Galeno has been kind of hit and miss, but I like him. You know, I'm curious to see how he fares. Definitely, they're going to look to set up some of his future title matches from this. Morris has that, at least has that kind of angle coming into it with him
Yep.
being ousted from Team 2000X. We'll get into him, I'm sure, in a minute too. But yeah, there's some intrigue there. It's not a terrible block by any stretch, but yeah, definitely, I think the action is in A Block. But I'm curious to see how this one turns out. Like, yeah, this one could really go either way.
I agree. Pretty much with everything you said. I think that, like you said, right away, their big thing is they've got two storylines going with Ozawa, both with Jack getting kicked out of Team 2000X, and as well as his rivalry with Keno. He's never beaten him one-on-one. So that's like Ozawa's kind of mountains to climb in this block. I totally agree with you about Inaba. That guy, I was his fan all the way to Wrestle One days. I was bigging him up. I loved his tag team with Kitamiya in the past. I loved his team with Soya that he had there, and he was the guy that really stood out to me. I think he always wrestles like a young, hungry guy, even though he's actually kind of a veteran at this point. So I'm interested in the block, and by the way, all fresh matches with Harutoki too, another Osaka stalwart that Noah's brought in. So you get a lot of fresh matches in B block. Ricky Knight as well, all new matchups with him. And I think that's kind of the strength of B block. But really, A block is pretty fresh too, with people like Endo in. So, you know, that's one thing I like about this tournament, and I think that was one of the big weaknesses of G1, was a lot of even the good matches was stuff we kind of saw before ad nauseum. And I think with this, it's like all of these guys are coming into some really fresh up matchups. So I praise them for that booking right away. Let's get into the blocks singularly, the wrestlers singularly now. I think we should start off in A block with the champ himself. And the champ is here as his old theme music, Art Life used to start with, if you're an old school Noah fan like me. The GHC champion, Kenta, obviously well known. He was the former ace of the company. You know, at first he was a young dickhead who pissed everybody off in the best of ways. I say that fully as a compliment. And had amazing matches. It was the junior ace, one of my favorite runs of all time, one of my personal favorite wrestlers of all time back in the mid 2000s. He grew to being the ace of the company and the GHC champion for a great run in 2013 to 2014. Then he made the decision to go to America, and if you're a new viewer to Noah, you may know him as Hideo Itami in his WWE run, which was really more NXT. I don't even think he really even did much on the main roster. Outside of the Battle Royal he won to be on the WrestleMania pre-show that time. But regardless, it wasn't his best work. I think everybody would agree with that. He got released unceremoniously, and his New Japan run started off promisingly somewhat, but definitely went to the point where he was teaming with Chase Owens at the end. So things were really not going that great for Kenta in terms of a push or anything like that. But he's come into Noah totally revitalized. I think he's putting on some of his best works basically since his first Noah run in 2025. He's got the fire in his eyes again. And I actually thought that he was a great choice to beat Ozawa in the champion back in May, where they built a big show around him, which obviously drew very well. But then they outsmarted me. Like by the end of it, I thought, okay, no, this is actually better with the double title switch in July, which turned out to be a great decision for everybody involved pretty much. So Kenta coming in as a pretty strong champion, you know, very popular with the fans, long-time Noah guy. He's a veteran. He's been here since the start pretty much of the company. What would you say about Kenta? and his role in Noah right now? Do you have anything else you want to add on? And what do you think his odds are? Well, maybe not odds. Does this man, regardless of our predictions, we're going to make a definitive prediction at the end of this, by God, no matter what. But does he have a chance to win the tournament? That's the thing I'm going to throw at you. Give you a chance to speak on these guys, and then tell me if there's even a sliver of a chance for this man to win the N1 this year.
Look, I mean, the thing is that unless like, and I've no evidence to suggest that this doesn't happen, but unless like Nassau is going to listen to this and then at the end of it all be like, nope, none of that is happening.
It's time to prove Dylan wrong.
Yeah, there's no evidence that doesn't happen. So, unless like some of that happens, I think in this case, look, absolutely there's a chance there, right? I mean, you could have the champion win. He could then choose his own opponent. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's more of a chance of it kind of being that he'll get quite a deep run here. I think he'll be alive up until very late in the piece, like up until the last kind of day of block action. I just don't see it happening that he, and I've got an idea just based on, if you read the tea leaves and if you look at this schedule here, I've got that open in front of me. There's a very clear scenario here for what could happen in kind of his run. But yeah, look, definitely, I wouldn't count it out. I wouldn't say no, there's no chance for Kenta to win or be in the final, but I don't think you'd book it this way. I think a tournament like this, typically part of the purpose is to set up that title match at the end. And last year, of course, they didn't go with that at all. Last year, it's very paradoxical in the way that they booked that. It's like, hey, this is actually a tournament final title on the line. And had Kaito win it, which again, like, I'm never going to be opposed to Kaito Kiyomiya winning anything, but that was a really strange decision they went with. I don't see that happening again.
What do you think Kenta's biggest match is? The one that you're most looking forward to in block play?
Like, there's some really great ones here too. Like him versus Kiyomiya in the very first night of the tournament. Like, that's fantastic as a main event. I really look forward to that. Him versus Kitamiya as well. Slight variation of the name, very different wrestler. On the 14th, intriguing. Like, I'd love to see those guys again in a match. And Kitamiya has a completely different attitude and different gimmick, so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, if you run down this, look at all these guys.
Yeah, all of his matches are pretty good.
Isn't a single one here that I'd go, like, I don't look forward to this. These are all good. Like, I mean, him against Oka Sasaki has, I believe, happened before in some capacity. They were in a unit together briefly, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that was Oka's story, is that Kenta, Keno, and Oka were all a unit together, and Kenta broke it up once he beat Keno for the title. And that's kind of left. We'll talk more about Oka when we get to him. Do you know when the last time Kenta faced Masaki Miya in a singles match was?
You'd have to go back to his last run with the company, you have to think, right? Like, we're looking at what he did before, like prior to 2014. Like, it has to be before then, right?
You'd have to go back to never, because they've never had a singles match in their entire career.
How is that the case? Like, that's intriguing. Like, that match should rock. Him versus Fujita as well. Like, how do you even book that?
I'm so interested in that match. Yeah. We'll talk more about Ironhead later on. But overall, Kenta, I think he's a really good wrestler. He's one of my all-time personal favorites, and I'm so happy to see him back in Noah compared to where he was. I hated watching him, like, the last couple of years. And I think that he's so good now, and I think he's a great champion. And I think to the point where whoever wins this tournament, or I guess whoever he decides, if by the off chance Nosawa does decide to outthink us all, just fighting him for the belt feels like a big deal, in my opinion. I think he's a really good choice to be the champion. I think I have very positive feelings about him as the champion right now. Would you agree with that?
Oh, like, I think it's interesting to see how differently he hits and how differently he works in Noah. And I think that's a few things there. I think part of it was, just face it, like, his New Japan run was kind of like him having to figure out a lot of different things after that WWE run that was. And I think he had to get his feet again. And then on top of that, I think in Noah, he's kind of been able to figure out this style that kind of plays to his advantage best and showcase his best. So he deserves this run that he's got. Variety of reasons, I don't think he's going to necessarily have a very long title reign here. But I suspect we're going to get some really great matches out of it while it happens, and we'll get into all that. But yeah, I think this is it's been great to see him kind of demonstrate that he's still got it, and he never lost his ability. He just hasn't always been able to showcase in the best kind of way, and I think we're getting that here now. It's yeah, in many ways, I think it's one of my favorite things with the company right now is them reinvigorating this guy.
Totally agree. My pick for the match would be his match versus Endo, because that is the final night matchup in block play. And historically, a champion's final match is always going to be important. It's very rare they book two guys to just, if you're the world champion, it doesn't mean anything. I don't know if it'll be for him or Endo or both, but I strongly suspect it'll mean something, and I think it'll be a quality match as well. The second person to talk about is the defending champion. As you mentioned, last year, a variety of circumstances led to the title being on the line in the final of the N1, and Kaito won. Kaito's journey is so long, I'm going to try and condense it because a lot happened in it. He came in as basically the hope of Noah. If you go back a decade plus ago, they were at a time where basically nobody was in the dojo. They had no real young talent or rookies coming in. All of their young guys were guys they found from Osaka, like Daisuke Harada, Atsushi Kotage at the time, two of my all-time favorites as well. Or people in the indies like a Yohei and Hayata, who were in Dove Pro. But he was like the great green hope, so to speak, when he came in, because he came in at the time when Suzuki-gun ran a year-long takeover angle of the Noah, which was very not good for business. We can all talk about them as a quality, which I also hated. But if you like that stuff, that's fine. But no doubt, the company wasn't at its best, and he was kind of the guy that could be viewed as the young savior. And he came back from Excursion, and he won the title very quickly. He came back with a title shot, his first match back, I believe, against Keno, which is a big part of his Noah career. Probably his top rivalry, more or less, in terms of length. He didn't win it the first time, but by the end of the year, he won it at a major show in Noah, their first match in Sumo Hall in a long time, for the Battle of Aesthetics back in 2018. And he had a great title run, did a lot of great things the first go-around. They ended up sprawling that into the great Go Shiozaki title reign, which a lot of people have great memories of, and I do too, as well. But I thought Kaito was a really good champion when he was the first time. He then went through a 5-year period of kind of a revolving door of different gimmicks and looks and things like that. He's really tried hard to find himself in the later role after Go Shiozaki stole his look completely and his gimmick as well of being Noah. He went through dark Kaito era with the all black. He had big rivalries with Keiji Muto and Kazuchika Okada, which didn't really bear a ton of fruit with the fans towards him. But he's always been kind of the main guy of the company in a lot of ways. He's kind of like the protagonist of the company, but the fans are kind of at a crossroads with him to the point where when he lost the belt to Ozawa at the start of the year, that sprungboard a whole new era in this Ozawa run that's been greatly successful, I would say. And his storyline going into the tournament, with the recent promo in the interview he had, where he basically said, what happened to all the Kaito fans? Like, now everyone loves Ozawa, but what about me? That's kind of his place in the tournament, 1 year after winning it and winning the championship as well. What do you think of Kaito, and what do you think his most anticipated match is for you?
Man, Kaido is someone that I love, someone that I think has had like it's one thing to book someone in a position where, they have to overcome a mountain and kind of get back to that, but they've given him that storyline so many times. Like it's a lot to kind of sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. We're good.
Yeah, I was just having some weird notification that I seem to be muted. But yeah, I was just sort of saying, like I think with Kaido, the way that he's booked is generally like kind of he has to climb a mountain, he has to overcome something. I think they've kind of given that to him so many very times that it's like that's a huge thing you associate with him with is not necessarily being so successful, not being on the winning side of things. Yeah, and yet has also had like that long title reign you mentioned has had kind of the title reign as recently as last year. It up until January this year, the first show of the year, I was at that when Ozawa won. I actually got really sick. I had some kind of food poisoning or something, and I loved just telling my wife later, yeah, Ozawa winning just left such a bad taste in my mouth that I was sick after it happened. But yeah, in this case here, nothing to do with that. He Kitamiya, I thought was going to win that match. So yeah, they've actually absolutely once again put him in a kind of situation where he has to climb the mountain, do that story again. I think that we're going to see that from him this tournament. That it'll be focused largely on that narrative for him. It will be fascinating to see how the crowd reacts to some of the things I think he's going to do. In terms of his most intriguing match, I look forward. I liked him and Fujita a few years ago. I think that was a banger of a match. Fujita was kind of the overpowered kind of OP challenger in that one. Him versus Endo should be really, really good as well. I also suspect that him and Kitamiya could be a sneaky kind of really good match. So I think I've already mentioned that though. The one I look forward to the most is him and Kenta. I think that's kind of a great
opening night.
And I think you need with a Japanese tournament to have that really good match in the first night. I think guys go all out on the first night, they go all out on the last night, and I think they kind of have nights off in between. And I think that's kind of a great way to start that off. So I'm going to put that as my match I look forward to the most, I think.
My pick is Endo once again. Much like, oh no, not Endo. Actually, that was Kentis. my bad. For Kaito, I do think Kaito and Endo will be really good too, though. To be fair, along with Kaito and Kenta, totally agree with that pick. I'm looking forward to him versus Ulka. Actually, I think this is the first time we're going to see fully formed Ulka. Now the group's done. He's out on his own. Him and Kaito are at it. I think they're going to be put in a real position on their show that they're going to have a banger of a match. So I'm looking forward. I think Kaito is at his best when he wrestles a grounded style, like the great match with Oiwa last year. I think that they're going to try and have a similar match to that. And so I love that Oiwa match. It was in my top 10 of the year last year. And I think him and Ulka is going to be a banger. Is it for an overused term, so to speak. I don't know where they're going to go with him booking wise. Do you think he has a chance to win the tournament?
I think he has a chance, and I think I definitely, for my prediction, I've got him having a very deep kind of run. I wouldn't rule him out, but like I say, you can never say that Nasawa doesn't listen to the show and just everything that we don't want him to. Yeah, so
it's gonna be it's tough for him coming in as the repeat champion. Like a lot of times people are tempted to go away from that. Do you think there could be some kind of change in his character going forward? With the comments heading into the tournament, do you think that there'll be some same old Kaito, or he does leave a faction called All Rebellion that's kind of done a lot this year? They lost Keno earlier in the year, and he's just kind of been floating somewhat in the card. It feels like in my opinion, that we're headed towards them trying to ramp up behind him again because it hasn't been his time since he lost the belt.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one with him because they had All Rebellion, and these guys do nothing rebellious. These are not rebellious guys. And yet, I think the interesting things with his character have been those little moments where, to cast minds back a little bit to the Kurikan Hall show that he had against Ozawa. Moments where Ozawa was hitting him really hard or whatever, and he kind of just like had the, the smile that he had, the kind of creepy side to him. Fans were booing until he starts absolutely bitch slapping Ozawa, and then fans started. Shows aggression when he shows that character that's had enough of this, and he will smile and he will laugh at it, but then he'll absolutely destroy you. That's a character that I think they need to kind of show that a little bit more and lean into the fact that he has, been up the mountain and then back down and then been up and back down. He's had the kind of Sisyphus sort of career in Noah. So I would definitely think like we'll see some more of that. I don't, for what it's worth, predict that he will win this. But again, this is a head and heart thing. If it was my heart, I would say him, and I think that would make a lot of sense for him to be winning this as kind of the, late in the year reshuffle, the kind of him getting back up the mountain again. But I have someone else in mind for who's going to win overall. But I definitely have kind of making a very deep run for this tournament. And again, we'll have to kind of see. But we know that he's going to perform well. With him, you always know you're going to get a really good match out of it.
Yeah, totally agree about that. I would rate him very highly as a wrestler, even though I don't like a lot of his booking over the past few years, and long-time listeners will know that. But I do love his in-ring skill a lot. And I think he's in position to have a lot of good matches. I think there's definitely a chance he can win the block, at least. Let's reframe the question that way. Do they have a chance to win the block? That's a little less pressure than winning the tournament. And I would say both Kenta and Kaito do. But with Kenta, I think it would be tough to win. Manabu Soya up next, a member of Passionate Rattels, along with his friend in B Block, Daiki Inaba, who are the former tag champions. They just lost to the team of Masakita Miya and Takashi Sugiura, who's not in the tournament for some reason. I'm not there. But Masa is, and he's in his block. That's the match I'm anticipating most. Soya has a totally interesting story. He started in the All Japan Dojo a long time ago, like 2000, like late 2000s, 2008, I believe. But it was around there. He had a good run early on before the split into Wrestle One. And he had this weird character where he was basically the GM of Wrestle One at the start. And he wasn't really, like, his whole purpose was just to screw over Kai. Wrestler's not in Noah, but he wasn't really pushed towards anything, really, in Wrestle One for his run. He came into Noah a couple of years back, and he really revitalized his career. He was really doing nothing for a long time. He never lived up to the potential a lot of people thought he had. With Get Wild and everything like that. You thought that he was going to do something big, but it just never worked out really. But in Noah, he really revitalized himself. Last year, he was chosen in the main event of the New Year's Day show, which is Noah's biggest show of the year in 2024, to challenge for the title against Kento. He's in All Japan. Another tournament, Odo tournament review. But Kento, he had the match with, and they were in the same group together, and they really built him up. He had a run with the national title. He's a firmly mid-card guy, I would say, but he has flirted with stuff before to be a little bit higher. He just had the tag titles for what it's worth. What do you think of him, and what do you think his odds are of winning the block? And his most anticipated match, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's awesome. He's a fantastic wrestler. I very much like everything about this guy. Part of his actual resurgence in his career actually happened in All Japan. When he and Keno won the world tag titles together as part of like a Noah working briefly with All Japan kind of thing that they had happen there, and they were fantastic matches. And he had a really great run in that year's Champion Carnival tournament. Now, again, you mentioned the Odo tournament. I don't mean to be like, hey, let's talk about several other tournaments now, but I love this guy. He, I think he's had a career resurgence. I think, look, as far as this goes, I don't have him winning the tournament. I don't have him winning the block. I think that they view him in a particular way where they kind of look at him as the guy that you can plug in reliably to any situation where you need someone, and he'll deliver the goods. That's why he was, if I understand correctly, chosen by Keno himself to actually main event that semi-main event, as it would turn out, the Budokan show that he was on. And wait, was that even the Budokan? That was actually not the Budokan. That was the arena show. That was
Ariaki, yeah.
As far as Ariaki goes, I digress though. In terms of this tournament, though, I have him having great matches because he always will, and I think maybe you use this to kind of, I guess, in some ways, sort of show what he can do. And in this block, again, this block lends itself to some really good matches. Him and Fujita on, I believe, the 20th. Is that correct? Yeah, it looks like the 20th. That should be intriguing in terms of who wins that. That should be great. Him and Kitamiya, I think those two should have another great match. They've definitely had a couple really good ones before. So I kind of have those two as the ones that sort of stick out to me for Foye. Though, yeah, again, then you say that. This is the great thing about this block. You kind of say, oh, those two are the ones I look forward to. Then you notice like him and Kenta, that could be interesting. So yeah, there's more than a few things for him to do in this tournament. And I don't have him winning, but I think he's going to show us something with his performance for sure.
I'm looking at him and Kitamiya, the revenge match for the tag titles. That's the match I expect him to win fully. But I do think it'll be a banger because they're so similarly styled. And so far, you have Kenta, who's known for his striking ability. Kaito, who's kind of an all-around type of guy. He's that young ace archetype. And then Soya, who's kind of a power guy. And has really gotten his body in great shape in the past couple of years. Like, he's jacked. He's going to do some good matches, too. So, yeah, definitely like him. Love the team with him and Inaba. I hope they keep that going with the Passionate Rattels as well. Up next, Oka Sasaki, a former MMA fighter. Oka is. He started really late in his run. He's a guy that, his whole career from, like a decade and a half almost was all about MMA. He was in Ryzen. He was doing a lot of great things. He was a UFC guy at one point, even. And, he debuted at the start. That same show you're talking about where Soya challenged Keno was Oka's debut in 2024. So he's been at it since then. He wrestles a very technical style, as you would expect an MMA fighter would. He's a guy that's worked really hard going in there. And he came in when he saw the main event of the prior year's New Year's show, which was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Great Muta. That was the match that inspired him to actually wrestle. So he has a great history with the company. He's been a full-time guy this past year in Noah, so he's really taken to it seriously. He's a good-sized guy, got good skills. I'm a big fan of his wrestling. He really appeals to me in terms of his style. He's a former tag team champion with Keno. And was a part of the group we mentioned with Kenta earlier in the year. But now he's kind of in a singles run on his own right now. And fate will determine where he goes in terms of factions or anything like that going forward. But right now, I'm a big fan of his. I think he was a guy that looked like he was going to be the next man up. And then Ozawa basically took that shine this year. But I still think he's very well respected and liked. And I think he's going to have a great tournament. For me, the match I'm looking forward to with him is against Fujita, the fellow MMA guy in the past. I can't wait to see what they do with each other. I think they could have an underrated banger. And I think that's a match that's going to really turn some heads. So I'm a big fan of this guy. I think it's very possible he could win the block, to be honest with you. I'm not saying I'm predicting it or not, but I do think there's at least a chance of it. What say you about Oka, his most anticipated match, and his chances to win?
I love Oka. You look at all these guys that are in Japanese MMA that go over to pro wrestling. So many of them, it's like they didn't fare that well. Like so many of these guys were bad at MMA or kind of like people that for whatever reason, that doesn't translate over. But in this case, he's got an overall record. He's a 24-10-2 for Olka. So he's had some big wins and was quite a competitor in MMA. So when someone like that makes their way over to pro wrestling and kind of with the encouragement of Shinsuke Nakamura, like he had, you know he's good. Just really, really transitioned really well. I thought better than I expected. So had this been a year ago, had we been looking at this today, projecting a year forward, I would have absolutely said this time last year, Sasaki will eventually be the guy that Olka will win this year's tournament, just because they clearly have invested in him. He signed was it the beginning of this year or was that late last year that he signed a contract? So look, they've invested in the guy and he's definitely going to have great matches. I don't have him winning the block and I don't think he's going to win the tournament because of other people, like you said, Ozawa and the changes to the main event picture. I just don't think he's going to rise quite that quickly, at least. Definitely someone I would personally, if it was up to me, I'd be putting him in more of the main event picture and seeing how he develops like that. But I think he can still have a good run here in this tournament. But yeah, I just don't think he's going to win just on the back of how quickly all that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Won't you
really
pull
interested to see. I'm pulling for him. Kazuyuki Fujita, another former MMA guy I just mentioned. Old Ironhead. His gimmick in MMA was that he could take substantial amount of damage. He wasn't necessarily a very great offensive fighter, but it's just he could get punched a lot in the head and survive it pretty much. In wrestling, he's got a ton of accolades. He's a former GHC champion, a former IWGP champion. He's one of Inoki's greatest proteges. He was kind of the face of Inokiism, so to speak, in the early to mid 2000s. And even his theme song is like an orchestral version of Inoki's song, which is a freaking great ass theme song. I'm not gonna lie. He's a guy that's a big bully in the ring, is the best way to describe him. He's another guy that lots of rumors have persisted that he's not a big fan of putting over certain people. Famously, Katsuhiko Nakajima in the past when Nakajima was here. But others as well. He's gotten a little bit older. He's in his 50s now. We'll see how long that can kind of be held on to, especially in the modern age of Noah. But he is in this block for a reason. I've always had a soft spot for him, to be honest. I know some people didn't like him because of political reasons, I suppose, or even perceived ones. But I've always had a soft spot for his wrestling. If you guys remember, 5 years ago, he had the famous match with Go Shiozaki where they stood and waited and looked at each other for 30 minutes. that everyone remembers. But he was on a big run then, was a major part of that era of Noah. He's a little bit older now, kind of been out of the spotlight. He doesn't have any story, really. The best stuff he did was with Odashima, who is Noah's best rookie right now. The stuff they did at the early part of the year, I thought was genuinely fantastic, and I loved his work in there. Since then, he hasn't done anything of note, but this is his chance. So what do you think about Ironhead Fujita, chances to win, and most anticipated match?
Oh, I think this guy is amazing. He's a monster, and I think that, a lot of the discourse that sort of surrounds him is kind of like this idea that he refuses to job and he kind of refuses to do this stuff. But, if I suspect it was entirely just Nasawa getting behind him as to why he won that GHC title. And, the way that they book him is very much that he's this kind of kaiju who has to be kind of really broken down for anyone to get anything. So yeah, I've definitely got him being quite successful. I'd be very tempted to suggest that this guy could win this block as well, just based on the very fact that they give him so much. I could very much see him being successful again and winning this block completely. So I wouldn't have him win the tournament overall, but I could definitely see it happening that he could win a block. For one reason or another, we'll get into some more detail, I guess, about exactly how that will fare. I won't give away too much more, but yeah, I could definitely have a good feeling about that. It's going to be interesting to see how they book him up and down through this, just because they give him so many wins that it becomes very difficult to predict him losing. They might have ways around that or some certain creative ways. But yeah, I can see him definitely dropping 1 to 2 really kind of key decisions, but otherwise overall having the count out loss, the disqualification, and otherwise winning a whole heap here. So non-zero chance he wins this block as well.
I agree. The thing that makes me think he won't win is his final match, and my most anticipated match for him is against Masa Kitamiya, who he just beat before the tournament in a singles match, which gives me an angle alert somewhat that there may be a revenge match in Masa Kitamiya's future, and that may prevent Fujita from moving on, so to speak, since that is the last night of the tournament. But I do think it'll be a banger.
They absolutely love doing that too. Like in 2023, they had Go Shiozaki lost the match to Keno, and Keno cut a promo on him afterwards about how he loses everything, and that was a big alarm bell for me that he was going to win the tournament. So I tend to know a book in a very particular way where they signpost stuff.
I totally agreed with what you said, and I was going to bring it up too. There's going to be some weird losses for him in this tournament, I think, like whether it's a count out, something like that, like you said. I fully expect that to happen. But I do think he will drop a couple of clean losses as well, to be honest. Up next, Tetsuya Endo here. He is a DDT wrestler who's another member of the Wrestle Universe family. And he's on an excursion right now in Noah. They said it would be for a year at the start of the year in January. He immediately got booked to win and then lose the national title within a month to Foye. And it's been a whirlwind for him since. Like, he originally joined Team 2000X. He got kicked out. They ended up doing a triple threat title match with Ozawa, Endo, and Sugiura, where Sugiura also turned against him. So now he's kind of on the path to revenge. We've never really gotten a resolution to him in Team 2000. But he's probably, of everybody, he's probably the most skilled flyer, I would say, of the tournament in Noah right now. He wrestles that style primarily. He's toned it down in recent years. In DDT, he has a whole history, which ranged from being the high-flying guy to Kobashi's protege, leading the new generation of Burning at one point. So he does have natural Noah roots in a lot of ways. And I liked his run in Noah. In DDT, I don't think he did a great job as as the Burning leader and the world champion there. But I really thought he bounced back as a tag team wrestler. And since he's been in Noah, I think he's been a really good guy. All fresh matches, again, that's something I look for. I think he's a charismatic guy. He's not the most outwardly expressive guy, but he wrestles really well, and I think that he fits in good in the company. I think he's been a good addition, and I like that he's in the tournament. What do you think about Endo, his most anticipated match, and what are his chances?
I think he refreshes Noah in a lot of ways, just as someone who hasn't been in the company a whole lot before, and as just another face that, again, just does, wrestles quite differently. I'm glad that he's out of Team 2000X and kind of, I think it's been an interesting kind of story there. And he's got some interesting interactions with those guys coming up that I look forward to. So him against Kitamiya, I think would be worthwhile. I think him against Kiyomiya as well. I look forward to that match. I think
that would be my pick, is Kaito.
Yeah, him versus Kaito. I think just that their styles would complement each other pretty well. I think we're going to see some interesting things from him in this tournament. I don't think he has a chance of winning. I just don't suspect that they have, and I know that he's very closely related to Noah because he's a DDT guy, but I don't think they have an outsider do so well for this one. I think they have a guy like him pick up a couple key wins and otherwise have great matches, but definitely I don't think he's going to win the A block here.
I think that's totally valid. I've heard talk that they want to keep him longer, to be honest. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. And there have been instances before where people have went on excursion and then never came back. People like Kanemoto and Minoru Tanaka, when they jumped to All Japan, while originally being New Japan guys. Akiyama himself was originally an All Japan guy that went to DDT, and they got him. So it would be interesting if he stayed there as well. But him and Kaito I think will be great. I think he's been had a good run. I think he's better as a babyface. I don't think they booked him very well the first half of the year, or really even since, to be honest. I think this tournament's going to be big for him. The thing that keys me into where I think he does have a chance, him versus Kenta on the last night. As I said, It's very rare a champion will be in a meaningless match, and I suspect Endo will be respected at least until that point. Whether he wins or not in there. So I think Endo will get some respect, and he'll definitely have my respect as a worker. He's really grown on me, and I wasn't that big of a fan of his in DDT. Masaki Tamiya up next. He's kind of the big character change of the tournament, the most recent one, where for years he was one of a number of big power guys in Noah, where similar to Soya, like they kind of filled similar roles. Just Kitamiya was here for a longer time. He was always that gatekeeper type. Whenever you need a one-off challenger, they would usually turn to him, but he never really had a hope of winning the belt. He had a very memorable rivalry with the aforementioned Nakajima, where he won a steel cage match. And that was something that led to him shaving Nakajima's head. And so he has gotten some wins, but he's largely been kind of stagnant as a character, in my opinion. So they changed that. A couple months ago, he turned heel, joining Team 2000X, forming a tag team with Sugiura. The best way I could describe his new look, because before he was very, very influenced by Masa Saito, who was his gimmick pretty much. And now he's kind of like a hitman, like for Team 2000X pretty much. He had the all black hair, all black suit. Like he's kind of gotten more of an edge to him as a heel. So they've really refreshed his character. They give him a tag title belt with Sugiura. What do you think about him and his odds of winning at his most anticipated match?
I've honestly long been a huge fan of Masa Kitamiya. I think as far as this kind of challenge, this kind of change goes, I should say, I feel two ways about it. I feel mixed. So he's kind of gone with his look, gone from being inspired from Masa Saito to being inspired by his other trainer there, as far as Kensuke Sasaki. Like he definitely looks a bit more like Kensuke now, I think, is what he's kind of going for.
Stringer made that point last week too, yeah.
And yet I feel like I feel good about this in one way. It will mean that he has visibility, he has a push, he has something new to do, and that's always good in wrestling, to not get stagnant, to not have to be booked the same way. Kind of this will be him being featured and as a tag champ, and this, just so that we can highlight this very quickly, so awesome to see him and who he's holding the belts with. As far as that kind of goes, I think like I can't argue with that. I can't say it's bad anytime that happens. One of my favorite tag teams going. But as far as like this goes, this is it felt like, to me at least personally, this felt like an unnecessary change. There was nothing wrong with how Masa Kitamiya looked and wrestled before this. I felt like the only issue was no one didn't get behind it. I really loved his matches, his look. I felt like for some reason that they just did not get behind him. I had hoped that they would after he sort of finally beat Tomohiro Ishii. After he finally got that win, I was like, yep, they're going to be on with this guy. And then the things I'd hoped for him just never quite came to pass. I'm pretty sure I've previously predicted him to win this tournament, as far as previous years went. So unfortunately, no one didn't agree with me. Yeah, again, feel mixed about it. Not going to lie, I wish they just kind of kept him where he was with the same previous look and had him actually win stuff and had him win a tournament like this without that unforced change. But this is where we're at. I'm not going to sit here and argue with it and say, no, absolutely not, change it back. If it means that he's going to pick up wins, if he's going to have a deep run here, yeah, I can see him having a good run here. I don't necessarily have him winning the block or the tournament, but I definitely have him as, someone that'll be in the mix for sure, and someone who, kind of they have some steam behind him, which is good. So, yeah, I think if he does drop falls, it'll be to set up tag title tag title matches down the line. I think that'll be one of the purposes in this tournament.
Good point.
So, they do that sometimes. So I think especially toward the end there, they'll be having him drop a few falls to set up future matches, but that'll be about it, Yeah, really great wrestler. Can't underscore enough how much I love him, and I really wish that they would give him a whole lot more because he deserves it.
Yeah, honestly, this is our first disagreement because I thought that the change was probably one of the best things that happened to him. I agree with what you said, though. Like, it's not that there was anything wrong with him per se. I just think when you're somebody like him and you've been in this role forever, it's so easy for you to be stale and the fans to not really vibe with you anymore. It's like we've seen everything you have to offer. Now, he's very talented. Don't get me wrong. I thought he had the best title match of the Keiji Muto title run that they had. That was the closest it came to working, in my opinion, because I largely look at that reign with complete disdain and thought it was really bad wrestling. But I thought he made that work in the best of his abilities. He's a guy that, again, he's always been in that role, like that big guy role, and it was so prevalent to me earlier this year where they had Soya and Kitamiya have title matches back-to-back in March against Ozawa, right? And those matches were practically the same, like with very little difference stylistically. A lot of that was due to Team 2000 and their over-reliance on shtick. I will admit that. But I really thought he had plateaued for a long time now. I get what you're saying. Like, well, if they would have just given him wins, he would have been fine. And I would have agreed with that before. But I think after so many years, a refresh isn't a bad thing. I don't think this one's bad at all, actually. I think this is actually a pretty good look he's got going on. And we'll see how his wrestling works. And I think that's going to be the judge of it. Whether I end up agreeing with you or not. If he wrestles Team 2000 style, I might end up coming back around and saying, damn, Jonathan, you were totally right at the end of the day.
It seems like they're going in a different direction with that he'll be a bruiser. He won't be, interference shtick kind of stuff. But I think like the main thing here is that my concern becomes that he gets put into a faction like Team 2000X and he becomes their hitman. He becomes their heavy, rather than him being in his own right in main events, the main event. And I think no matter what, like eventually they have an interesting approach with this faction because they've got guys that are saying already to Ozawa, we're in the same faction. That doesn't mean we're friends. And I think they could do something with that. But so, I'm not completely against this. I'm not like crapping on it, but I'm, I think
I get where you're coming from.
It's not something good. That's right. It's just, it's not what I would have done for a variety of reasons. His faction's becoming big.
No, that I agree with. To be fair, they've had a lot of people joining this group, but I actually think he's closer than ever to a main event level push with this, like because this opens up the option for one of them to turn on the other. And I suppose we'll see what happens because they did that with Endo. They haven't fully gotten behind that. We'll see what happens with Morris, but maybe he's the one to turn on Ozawa. Maybe that could lead to him being the leader of the group eventually. I love the look. He really does have an aura about him, actually, with this one, in my opinion. So I hope to see good things. As I said, I think he'll beat Fujita. And that is the match I'm most looking forward to for Masa, is the last one. Final member of A Block, Daga. He's really known more as a junior heavyweight. He's one of 2 Mexican competitors in the tournament. He got his start very early on, had a run in AAA way back when. Really was known more for Dragon Gate in Japan originally. His run there as a part of the RED faction. Long-time heel and things like that. in Noah, he's been here for a couple of years now. He's been a guy that has been very much, very much linked to the junior title, the GHC junior title. As a wrestler, I wouldn't consider him really a traditional luchador like we saw last year with Gopiadores being in the N1. He's much more of like a basic wrestler, I would say, in a lot of ways. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything. He's got power moves. He's got some technical moves, but he's an all-around wrestler, more or less. He was also a part of the tag team in 2000X with Jack Morris earlier in the year when they obviously did the thing with Omos. Daga was kind of his replacement, which is kind of funny to think about. If you know Omos and Daga, two guys who haven't been compared that much, I would argue. But they've given Daga a little bit of a push. He has a singles win over Daiki Inaba coming into the tournament. He was there with Sugira as well. Like, they switched people around as a tag team before they settled on the Sugira and Kitamiya thing. He's kind of a utility player in the group, but he's somebody they clearly trust, and I feel like this tournament, putting him in here, is kind of giving him a reward in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, I feel like he's the weak link of this block in terms of work and his push level. But maybe now is the time he breaks out. He's got a lot of different opponents that stylistically could match up well with him due to his size, with Endo, Kenta, even Oka a little bit. So he's got some guys in there. I think he's set up to have the best match with Endo, in my opinion, who more closely represents the style he would wrestle. But what's your thoughts on Daga? And what do you think his odds are in his most anticipated match?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it all there. I mean, he's a pretty good wrestler. I think he's a guy that, he's recently announced that he's going to be an open weight competitor. So I don't think we've ever had anyone formally kind of suggest that they were that before. They've just had some people that they've booked in more than one division. But I guess they're looking to have him in more heavyweight things like this. So, really good wrestler. Not someone who I think is going to particularly pick up very many wins in this tournament. I think that he's in there with a lot of very heavy hitting guys, with guys that they clearly see a lot more in, like him. But look, I think him and Kaito could be a good match for sure. I think that him and Tetsuya Endo as well could definitely produce something that would be interesting. I just don't see him particularly picking up very many wins. And so, yeah, I don't think he wins the block, but definitely someone else that will be in there that could surprise us, could have some chance to demonstrate what he can do. For sure, someone that recently was trying out for the WWE. I definitely saw that picture on Twitter. So, depending on how that went and depending on what his future intent is, I think we'll see a lot of that here as far as how the company views him. But, one of those things where I think that we'll see some decent matches out of him for sure. I don't think there's anyone bad in this block at all. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing what he can produce, but I don't think he's going to be as successful with it.
Then we go to B block. Galeno Del Mal, the current national champion. He is the brother of Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., which means he is the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., and as well as Rossi Moreno, great luchadora in the past. So he is very big. He started in Japan in Glate, of all places, and they pretty much just after Galeno, after Dr. Wagner left and went to AAA, and it's kind of like sidewinded his way into WWE. Galeno's just been slotted in his role, I feel like. As a wrestler, I thought he had some potential early on, but I haven't been impressed by his run, I have to say, as the champion. I thought he was a fun guy, and that feels like kind of where he peaked at. Being more of a serious competitor, I haven't really loved anything he's done, and I guess we'll have to see where he's at. I also don't think this block necessarily is built to utilize him to his strengths. With people like Marufuji in there and Ricky Knight, which I don't know how he's going to vibe with. It's going to be interesting to see how they use, because they have respected him booking wise. I think he's going to be somebody that they give something to. I would also say look at his last match on the tournament against Keno. We kind of say that he may be involved in something. What are your thoughts on Galeno? And what's your most anticipated match for him? And where do you think? What do you think his odds are of winning?
So yeah, I think like definitely not as good as his brother, I think is one comment. But look, he's obviously younger than his brother. He is at quite a different kind of point in his career. So
he's only 24. You know, that is fair.
4 years old, yeah. Which, again, like all that kind of stuff considered, you know, all very well and fair. And I think, yeah, absolutely, he got his brother's role in the company for the most part. But I think that like he definitely does produce good matches. I think he's had some quite good matches this year. I think I think he'll have a deep run in this tournament. I don't see him winning the block, but I think he's going to have quite a good run. I can see him kind of getting some stuff here as far as some big wins and some good matches. Him against Daiki Inaba, I think, is one that, you know, that could be a sleeper hit as far as that goes. And you could see Inaba use that to kind of get a title shot down the line. I always look to that kind of thing. As well.
Yeah, that's kind of his big role in the tournament too.
Yeah. And I think, you know, he's someone who I definitely look forward to seeing his matches. I don't want to doubt that at all. As far as that kind of stuff goes. So, but yeah, him versus Keno, obviously last match of the last night. So I could see him maybe getting an upset there as far as like him against Keno goes. So yeah, you know, I wouldn't count out that kind of thing. Him being used to kind of spoil a few people would be something I'd look out for. But yeah, I don't see him like particularly winning something.
I'm interested to see what him and Ricky Knight do, because I feel like that match could fall apart or be a sleeper hit, as you said. Yeah. So I have like even if it doesn't work out, I think it could still be interesting and entertaining. Naomichi Marufuji, complete legend of the company, much like Kenta and A-Block, was one of the main guys, had an ace run. Both junior and heavyweight, was one of my favorites a long time ago. He's had his struggles the last couple of years in singles matches. The Kenta match was not very well regarded, to say the least. And the Ibushi match from 2024 was universally panned as one of the worst matches of all time, almost. So he did have a good match versus AJ last year, though, when AJ Styles came over. They delivered big in their match. So it's not all hope is not lost with him. But definitely, I feel like him being in and Sugiura not being in is kind of a major flag that something's up. And I think that he's going to be somebody they focus on in this tournament in a lot of ways. So I think that we're going to see him really give his best effort in a lot of these matches. And like, we're going to see like what's truly left in Marufuji's tank in this tournament, I would say. My most anticipated match for him is Keno, I would say. I think they have history together. They're going to have some good chemistry. Even just a kick and strike based match could be good for him. What say you, Dr. Jonathan?
To be honest with you, I hadn't even thought of the possibility there as far as kind of him winning the tournament or him, you know, getting to the final or anything like that. I kind of thought this will be a a Legends run, like the kind of run where the guy gets, some respect, gets a couple of cool matches out of it. But overall, I never like really once even thought of the possibility of him being a factor. So you've actually kind of reset my brain there on that one. It's going to be tough because he just had a title shot on top of it being him in the first place. Like that's going to be a tough sell, I would say. I don't think he's going to win, but I definitely had him out a lot earlier than maybe I should have, as far as that goes. But because I think like, look, as far as I like the Kenta versus Marufuji match a lot more than most people did. I think a lot of people maligned that almost the level of the Ibushi match. I was expecting something more.
Oh, it was
like
a lot
that.
better
And
than that.
I think it had a. I just think like I think what happened there was it was a clear structure that they were going to go for, with it being the title match. The GHC title match tends to follow the exact structure that they followed, and perhaps they could have cut certain spots out of that prior to that. It might have made it a stronger, smoother match overall, and maybe cut it a little shorter. But yeah, I didn't think it was a bad match by any stretch, and I'm definitely more on the upside on that one. As far as this tournament goes, it's going to be very interesting to see how he fares. I think he's hopefully in okay health going into this one, and it's definitely going to be a test for him as far as this goes, because we haven't seen him do this for quite a few years now. I can't remember when the last time was that he had been in a tournament like it. You definitely have to go back some ways. So yeah, as far as all that goes, I think he could hopefully have some great matches. I think as far as things to look out for and matches that might have some intrigue to them, him versus Ricky Knight, much like you said with Galeno, it remains to be seen how that match sort of focuses. I think Knight
last show of the tour too, Ricky and Marufuji.
It could very well factor then into the result of that. Could be a upset win for Knight, but yeah, definitely him versus Inaba should be good. Those guys had a brief mini feud. I don't know if you remember that, but that was back in, was it 2022 or 2023? Those guys had a couple of.
Yeah, I believe it's 2022. But Inaba, yeah, like he that's like his zone is when he's wrestling as an underdog against people like Marufuji. Yeah, he got the best out of him for sure.
But yeah, my absolute the match I look forward to the most though for Marufuji in this one is much like the match I look forward to the most for a lot of people is Keno. Keno's phenomenal. We'll get to him, but yeah, those two guys against each other should be worthwhile.
Speaking of Keno, he's the next person we'll talk about. Very famous for his YouTube channel, which gets a lot of good rub on Twitter for the Noah fans out there. Very comedically toned. He'll bring on wrestlers from other companies and talk about them. He talks about all kinds of people, does all kind of goofy stuff on there. But he's gotten very famous for that. As a wrestler, he originally started out in a company called Michinoku Pro, which was very famous in the northern part of Japan as more of a junior heavyweight territory. He's one of the ones they signed, like they talked about earlier, where they didn't have anybody in the dojo. They brought him in. Hajime Ohara was in. They brought in from Smash Wrestling New Classic, and they brought him in from Michinoku Pro, and they were kind of a team for a while. But he grew into a heavyweight, and he ended up becoming a multiple-time champion. One of the top rivals for Kaito Kiyomiya is kind of like his main storyline. I would say Noah. But going into this tournament, as we mentioned before, the team with Kenta and Oka got broken up. He was a former tag team champion with Oka. He defeated Ozawa for the GHC heavyweight title and then lost to Kenta literally one day later. And in general, he's largely known as when he does win the title, it's usually not for very long. He's kind of in that rub where he's a main eventer, but he's always like a step below somebody, whether it's an ace or even in his faction with Kenta right now. I definitely think he's going to get a lot of respect, and he's always a threat to win this tournament, and specifically this block, I would say. But in general, I love him as a wrestler. Another high strike guy, very known for his kicks. Can do some high flying stuff as well. Like the big moonsault into the foot stomp is very cool. Big fan of his. Love his national run that he had where he choked people out and fought a bunch of shooters. Everything about Keno is very charismatic, very entertaining. I think if you're a new fan, you're going to love this guy. He's one of the easiest people to work with new fans. I think all of his matches are going to be among the most anticipated for everybody else. For me, though, I got to go with Ozawa, the world title rematch they have. I can't wait to see if they continue the storyline of Ozawa never beating Keno before in a singles match, or if this is a time for Ozawa. So I can't wait for the match. What do you think about Keno, his chances to win in his most anticipated match?
One, just Keno fucking phenomenal. So I actually start the book that I'm working on, the Noah book, with a little bit of Keno. There's a way that he factors into this thing that is quite big. That's all I'll say about that for now. But yeah, I definitely chose that for a reason, as far as him being one person that is a key factor there in that particular narrative about Noah. Keno is phenomenal. I think everything he does is great. I think not everyone can necessarily be at the level that he's at. And I think a lot of people would love to see him get a stronger push, be the face of this company, but one reason or another, he ends up as kind of like the guy that makes everyone else, and that pushes a lot of other things along. He and I share, like, we're both born in the same year, so I end up
cool.
bragging that, like, that's, as much as I'm kind of dreading turning 40 this year, if Keno's that age, then I can't be too bad, right? So yeah, it's, as far as all that goes, really great guy. I think also he's going to do well in this tournament. I think great matches, and it surprised me if he ended up, quite a deep run in the thing as well, if he ends up winning the block. So I could see that possibly happening. I wouldn't rule that out. I don't have that as my ultimate. However, I think there's something that lends itself a lot more to this tournament. But yeah, my most anticipated match probably is that one against Ozawa. I think as far as that one goes, yeah, do I have that correctly, that where is he and Ozawa? Are they against each other in the last night, or is that
no
just 1 week?
Ozawa faces Jack and Keno faces Galeno on the last night.
Ozawa, Jack, Keno, Galeno. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, I guess that as far as that kind of goes, could set up a few things out of both of those matches. But yeah, absolutely. I think I kind of have this going one particular way. More on that in a bit.
But it should be a lot of fun, his tournament, to say the least. So. And on top of it, arguably, and my pick for the best entrance theme song in Noah, Heartbreak Mosh. There,
I think
so
the Romanized kind of characters at the bottom, like, so that we could all sing along as far as that goes. But
yeah.
This theme song.
He'll do it for us. He'll do it for us. One of these days.
He was very embarrassed the time that he did sing along with it. One time he kind of caught himself doing that. So
we all do it. Like, every wrestler sang along. If you have a cool song, like, it will always happen. Trust me on that. Daiki Inaba, we've mentioned a lot about him on everyone else's runs here. He's a guy started in Wrestle 1 with one of their prized guys. Ended up being the last champion of Wrestle 1 as well. So he was kind of like waving the flag for them for a long time. That was like Keiji Muto's older company, which he kind of abandoned at the end. But he was a big part of it. He made the switch from there to Noah. He was a guy that meant so much to the tag team scene with Masaki Tamiya in their team a few years ago. But they just never went anywhere with it. And then he had a sequel run this year with Manabu Soya as Passionate Rattels. And they had a great run as well. In a lot of ways, they had a very similar template to Bishamon, if you're a New Japan fan, of Goto and Yoshihashi. Inaba has a very similar archetype towards Yoshihashi, in my opinion, where he's best off as a really fiery underdog. Somebody who's like not known for winning at all, but a lovable, spunky guy that's really easy to get behind. And we've seen it since his return. He was out for a while with injury, and he's came back this year really good with the tag run. But still, I believe that is going to be his role in this tournament as well. Somebody often fighting for underneath, but I think he's a guy that's consistently underrated. But I think now he's finally reached a point where Noah fans kind of taken to him. So I think all of his matches will be good. I personally am anticipating his match with Harutoki, another underdog type of wrestler I feel in the tournament. How are they going to match up together? Really interested in that. So what's your feelings on Inaba? His chances of winning, he's not going to win. And his most anticipated match for you?
Yeah, so Love Inaba, one of those guys who has a very interesting story. You know, he was training in the All Japan dojo. He goes on excursion, and then the split happens. So he never actually, if I'm understanding this correctly, never really sets foot in an All Japan ring. Ends up
Yeah,
in
that's right.
Wrestle
Yeah.
One, and then after Wrestle One winds up, he's I think the third from the final champion. And then he ends up in Noah. So look, one of these guys that was an interesting time too, because you know New Japan weren't really hiring anyone, so all these guys from Wrestle One ended up floating over to either All Japan or Noah. So that was kind of cool to see different places get these guys. And yeah, Inaba is just a great underdog. You know, he's someone who that's largely the character is kind of what his kind of chances are when he's outmatched, and kind of him having the chance to, I think, pick up a couple of key wins in this rather than winning overall or winning even all that much. My most anticipated match for him probably has to be Keno. I think the two of them can make something special out of it. You know, Keno is going to be kicking him really, really hard and punishing him, and Inaba firing up and kind of firing back and having that kind of baby face run. And him versus Ozawa as well. I think like you could really tell a kind of an upset story.
Natural pairing. Yeah.
Very much a natural pairing. Ozawa is just going to be taunting him during the match, in the lead up to the match, after the match, regardless of what the
yeah.
Yeah. So I think those guys should turn in something interesting there. So yeah, I'd go with thinking like he'll get a couple of key wins, but overall, you know, not win the tournament or the block, but that's okay.
Jack Morris, I would argue he's probably the guy with one of the biggest storylines heading into the tournament. He was a part of the heel group, Team 2000X, and he was a founding member of it after being a part of the former faction, the Good Looking Guys. So he was a big part of the heel run for them, and recently they've turned on him. He's kicked out of the group, and now he's in the same block with the leader of the group that took it over, Ozawa, here. Although I guess technically Yoshitatsu is kind of the unofficial, the spiritual leader of the group. But he's here. He's facing him the last night. I think there is a very good chance he will be important to this tournament one way or the other. As a wrestler, I feel like he's plateaued, to be honest. I think he's fine. And like a great look. There's rumors that WWE is very interested in him, which I can see why. Like I said, I think he's got a fantastic look and good ability. But I thought that he's somebody that started off, I was kind of shaky on him. And he came from such a low spot where he was at before. He's grown a lot, no doubt from there. But I do feel like in terms of wrestling, he's not somebody I would say has grown spectacularly in the last year or so. We'll see if he can bring it out here. He's got something to really sink his teeth into. There's going to be a spotlight on him. And regardless of how he turns out, facing Ozawa on the last day means that there will be on him. So I think he's going to be motivated. Let's see how good he can be in this tournament. What are your thoughts on Jack? His most anticipated match? What are his chances of winning?
So a couple of years ago, you and I did one of these where we tried to kind of pick where people, would be at. And it was actually Jack's debut not just in Noah, not just in this tournament, but in Japan at all. And no one knew who he was. And he very quickly kind of made an impression on people. He surprised people when he beat Kaido in the first night. So yeah, look, he's someone who I think is a great wrestler, who I think be interesting to see what they do here with this Team 2000X story, if he's going to factor into things one way or the other. I think I can see him getting some key wins and doing some big things in this tournament. Him versus Keno should be an interesting match, I think. But yeah, absolutely. I think the focus is going to be him and Ozawa. I think that one could lend itself to him getting a spoiler territory kind of role. I think they'll tease that, at least, that he'll be the one who, he'll view his role as being the one to keep Ozawa out of winning the tournament. I think that's the key angle going into the final night, at least for him. But yeah, absolutely. I think he's a good wrestler. I think WWE would be nuts not to get their hands on him. And absolutely, I just sort of hope that he stays away from them as long as he can for the time being, kind of maybe selfishly that I hope he stays with Noah. But yeah, absolutely. Someone I definitely didn't have big expectations for him at first, and definitely he showed us all. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good wrestler. I think he's actually someone who I interviewed a little bit for the book, and I had a bunch of like translations done. So I sent off I sent the questions off. They answered the questions, and then I had to get translations for the answers. And when it comes to Jack Morris, if someone jokingly asked me, "Oh, you need translations for him?" I'm like, maybe the Scottish to English translations, but yeah, outside of that, I don't think I particularly need any of that. He's got a lot of very interesting thoughts on wrestling. Very thoughtful guy about all that stuff. So yeah, look forward to see kind of how he fares with the tournament.
Correct. He is the only Scottish member of the tournament as well. We have to represent that. And one thing that stood out to me is when he first came in, everyone was clowning this guy. Like, who is this dude?
Guilty.
And he didn't even do it. And he didn't even do anything. Like, he's just a guy on the Indies in his home, and he got this great spot, and he ended up making the most out of it. Like you said, he really showed a lot of doubters. I was rooting for him then. And one thing I liked about him is when he did make that debut run, I saw him on all sorts of podcasts and all sorts of interviews online, like him talking about, hey, this is what I'm about. This is where I've been. This is what I want to do with Noah. Like, he really got himself out there and made friends with a lot of people that covered Noah. So I really do agree with you. I'm not surprised at all that he's a thoughtful guy. He seems like a good guy as far as I know. So I'm hoping that he can really break out here and explode a little bit, because I do think he's really lost his way a little bit. Just because, I mean, Ozawa overtaking the group kind of puts you in a tough spot, I would say. But I do think he's going to bounce back in terms of push here for sure. Harutoki, he is the last man to qualify. He beat Go Shiozaki in what some would say is an upset in his first match back to qualify. He's another one that didn't start in Noah. He's a guy that he wrestled in the Indies in the Osaka area for a long time. And I think that he's a guy that if you listen to the English commentary with Stu Fulton and Mark Pickering often, they're really selling him big. Like that, okay, hey, this is a guy that is going to be a player. Buy your stocks in this brother because he's going to be on the way up. He's a future star and all of that. I don't know. And he is a young guy too, as well. He's only 28, 27, excuse me, 26, excuse me. He's a young guy, and he's a guy that has a lot on his plate in terms of what he's done in Dotonbori Pro and things like that. So him coming in was a little bit of a surprise. He was really a part of Limit Break. Go is the one that recruited him, and he's one of his like biggest backers, pretty much. They had a match for the 0-1 title too for Go last year, so he is like Go's guy, pretty much. And he officially announced that he signed with Noah just a couple of weeks ago. So he's somebody they clearly have a lot of big plans for, and he's coming in as kind of the bottom of the totem pole guy, but the one with a lot of upside. What do you think of him? What do you think of his tournament? And what do you think of his most anticipated match?
Yeah, so Harutoki is someone who, again, it's just been kind of cool to see Noah signing new talent. And one of those guys who I believe sort of will be the future of the company. And yeah, I think there was a big indicator that they're behind him when he defeated Go. I understand that, the way this company books, they often have someone come back and have a hard time getting wins, when they're back, because the logic to that being kind of they haven't been wrestling for a while, so therefore it's easier for them to lose. It's a different way of doing things. But yeah, look, I think that was an indicator to you that as to what they see in him, as to the fact that they do have a big plan in mind for him in the long run. I think for this one, he is another underdog in this tournament, and I think we're going to see kind of him drop a lot of falls and stuff like that. But I think he'll get a couple of big wins to kind of sort of demonstrate where he's at and demonstrate his value, and kind of one of those guys that, again, will have good matches and demonstrate to us all as to why he's there.
In addition, he did win Don't Worry Pro's Strongest Man tournament right before he filed. So he is officially Noah's strongest man, I would say. I don't think that's actually accurate, but I think that the match I'm looking forward to him, he has a stablemate, Galeno, in All Rebellion, which could be cool. But I think he's ready-made to get beat by Keno in a very entertaining way. Like, I think Keno should play rough, and it should be great.
A little bit of useless trivia here is I was actually at.
I love useless trivia.
I was at his second match ever, and his second match for Dotonbori Pro when I went, which was kind of a small gym in Osaka. And yeah, just one of those shows where I was trying to get tickets to DDT and try to get in there, and I got my times confused. So I ended up seeing Dotonbori Pro instead. And yeah, just I wish I could tell you, oh, and he had the best match of the night, and I remember it all. I don't really remember a whole heap of it, unfortunately. It's just one of those times when, you know, you're seeing a whole lot of stuff there. But the cage match entry for it is kind of incomplete as well. But
or
yeah, absolutely.
Harutoki. Finally, two more left before we get to the predictions. Ricky Knight Jr. He is from England. He's well known as being the cousin of Saraya in Paige and WWE fame. He's a guy that he was a big deal. He was just recently the Rev Pro British champion. He just lost it right before the tournament. You know, so he's one of the top England stars in general, I suppose. But this is going to be a time for him that this is almost like a make or break in a lot of ways. Obviously, his family, a lot of people have feelings about them for all sorts of reasons, mostly legitimate, I would argue, for various reasons. But he himself is in Japan, making his run at the Rev Pro, representing Rev Pro, and now in Noah here. He is really the only outside talent, like non-regular talent in this in this tournament. So that alone has a spotlight for him. What do you think about Ricky Knight Jr.? What do you think his odds are winning? And what's your most anticipated match?
So it'll be interesting to see how he fares in this environment, in this tournament, because it's interesting to see some wrestlers come in and they know how to play to the Japanese crowd and they know how to get over in Japan. And for others, it's more of a tough thing. They need to kind of warm up to it. So yeah, it's going to be a big test for him. Definitely look forward to seeing him against Keno. I think, you know, they could do something interesting there, and I think he could get some sort of interesting kinds of, you know, upset wins and so on and so forth. I don't necessarily see him going that deep in this tournament, but I can see him, yeah, you know, picking up some key ones here and there and kind of being the kind of utility player that has a good match here and there. I think, like I said, they're a big test for him, and it's a bit hard to judge. I've never seen any of his work before, so hard to kind of say yay or nay on that one. We'll see how it turns out there.
Yeah, he's I think he's a big fan of Japanese wrestling from what I can tell. You know, he posted that this was his dream to wrestle in Japan. So he is a guy, like, I mean, his Twitter handle tells you right away 450. You know, like, you know, RKJ 450. That shows you like that's what he's kind of about. We'll see how he fares in this tournament. I know it's going to be a big deal for him, and he'll be motivated. I think he's going to need a lot. I think he's going to be respected, to be honest, because he is the only outsider. He's in a spot where he's facing Marufuji, which would be a big deal to him, I'm sure. And I think that's probably his most anticipated match. Like you said, I think Keno's the one we trust the most to get a good match out of anybody. And I think he can play off of him the best, too. So I agree with you. Keno's my most anticipated match pick for him. I think he'll get respect. I think the odds of him winning are very low, I would say. Last guy to talk about, Ozawa, the protagonist of the entire promotion, the GHC champion for much of the year, winning it on the New Year's show that you were live for, as well as my regular co-host Striga was also in the building for that as well. And he ignited business in a positive way. He's gotten almost universal praise as being one of the most successful GHC champions in a long time. He's gotten fans in Japan as well, very much behind him. He's constantly one of the most over guys and one of the most exciting guys in terms of the fan support. He's also known for his breakdancing, I would say, coming in there. And was a dynamic wrestler, somebody who came in really great. His inspiration to wrestle was Mystico in CMLL. So for a heavyweight, that gave him a unique style. We see some of his moves like that. A lot of his title reign has been very much House of Torture-esque with Team 2000X. In the tournament, it's going to be interesting if that continues. There's been some shakeups in the group. And as you mentioned earlier, it seems like they're trying to turn the whole group's image around a little bit. This may be the chance to show his wrestling chops. If we can see that, I have high expectations for his tournament. If we see more of the Team 2000X matches, I have zero interest in watching any of his matches. But that's just my personal stylistic preference. A lot of people liked his run, and I will not criticize them for that. And ultimately, he is really the most important guy in the tournament in a lot of ways. I definitely think he's a threat to win the entire thing, let alone the block. He has the storylines with both Endo and Morris in his group, as well as Kitamiya, who is in his group as well. So you get a lot of different guys that he could fight. He's going to be in the main event of a lot of shows, I anticipate, and I think he's a guy that will get a star treatment everywhere he goes. What do you think about him? What's your most anticipated match? And what do you think his odds are of winning?
So I think, first up, he is absolutely a draw. He's absolutely one of these guys that has worked better than I think anyone could have ever anticipated in terms of having to learn a lot in a short amount of time. And my God, becoming a star in such a short time. I don't think any of us could have predicted that he'd be the one to effectively lead Noah for all that time. I think we do have to put his title run and his box office success in context is the thing I would say. A lot of people would sort of say, oh, but he's the one that kind of led the company through, they were selling out Kurikens and they had this great attendance. But just worth kind of remembering here that Noah had a couple of sellouts in Kuriken before he was champ, and kind of what he's effectively doing is he's kind of the extra thing on top of all that helps propel them. I don't think any one man is enough to lead them to box office success overnight, but definitely he didn't drop the ball when they handed it to him. And he definitely, I think, is someone that is a star because of the timing. He goes against so much of the Noah tradition by being such a star so quickly and so young as well. So I think, definitely someone who has done interesting things with character work. He's not necessarily my cup of tea or my favorite kind of guy, like a lot of this sort of character stuff he does. Just in terms of personal preference. But he has still, good matches. Definitely has done very well with what he's been given. Not like ultimately, I guess, like my favorite matches or anything like that, but it's hard to argue with the guy's success, hard to argue that he's tapped into something in the culture as well. And so my prediction, for what it's worth, is that he will win this block, and I think the tournament as well. I think that he's going to be the guy that does it because he's the one that has Noah led at this point. And I think with him being the top star for so long, I just don't think you have someone like that drop the belt, fade away, and long-term not be back to it. I think you can see him, I think he needed a break with title run for sure. I don't think like you could have had it be sustainable for someone like him to be a long-term champion over a year, for instance. I think that would have been a bit too much. I think you run the risk there of alienating the crowd or having him lose something in the process. I think shorter runs are the way for him. And yeah, for what it's worth, that's my So with A block here, we've got, I think here a couple of interesting kind of things that obviously come to it. I think Kenta will be very much alive on, on the final night up until roughly then, being the champion and everything. I don't think he wins the block though. I think he'll be roughly second in the block. Just because you keep your champion strong throughout. And I think for what it's worth, I tend to think just based on their previous feud and based on kind of where things sit, I'd have my prediction be that Kaito Kiyomiya makes his way through to the final. I think Kaito wins his block. He's defending the tournament overall. He's the last tournament winner. So I've got him winning this block, but Kenta kind of coming second there. And, as far as the other guys go, I think we're going to see a lot out of Fujita in terms of wins. And so I'd have him probably roughly third for this one. And I think the rest would kind of be relatively even matched in this one. Whereas, yeah, that's my A block prediction. Well, what say you? Have you got something different?
Real quick, I'll run through the whole storyline of the block. Daga's at the bottom. I only have him having one win in the tournament, and I have him winning early on. I think that he's a guy that you don't need to give wins to. Soya, I have second to last, only 4 points in my win. I have 2 wins. I feel like he's kind of been passed by with Kitamiya as a toy. Would love to see him get more, but I don't know. After that, I have Fujita taking a bunch of goofy losses in there to put over the main guys in there. I have him at 6 points. Then we have a 3-way tie with Masakita Miya, Oka Sasaki, and Kenta all at 8. There. And then we have Kaito and Endo tied at 10, but I have Endo advancing to the final on the final night. Basically, my play out with this, Endo, Kenta, Kaito are all alive on the final night. And Kaito beats Daga early, and Endo and Kenta are tied at 8. So basically, Kaito has lost to both Kenta and Endo in my predictions. So the only way he can advance is via a tie. And that's what he's rooting for. I think that plays into his character very well, that this unpopular like ace type character needs to get in a very lame way through a draw. But in the end, Endo I have scored the win, getting the win over Kenta. Kenta I have taking falls to Endo, Oka, and Masakita Miya to set up title reigns, because I do think they will have him defend until the new year, regardless of the winner. What do you have in B block?
So, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So for B block here, we've got a couple of interesting ones in terms of this block. Like, I think that it's not as interesting as the first block as A block, but I think that we've got a couple of factors here, a few things that could be interesting. I think, for instance, you could have a scenario where we see Keno pick up a lot of wins. Keno becomes competitive and have him alive on the very last night. I would have him very much equal points to Ozawa. Both Keno and Ozawa get, say, roughly close to, say, 10 points. And then, obviously, at the very end there, you can have an upset take place. As far as, like, Keno's final night,
is the Galeno would win over Keno?
Yeah, you could have, like, a Galeno kind of tie break there. No, Galeno spoils things, but Galeno obviously, I think, drops a couple of key falls here. I think he maybe loses to Inaba to set up a future title match, possibly to Jack as well.
Yeah.
I think that'd be nice kind of to do there. It sets up some worthwhile matches. Maybe if they do see something in Ricky Knight, he could beat Galeno and set up a future title match as well. It depends on if they want him back or not, or like if there's a one tournament. Some tournaments are the only bookings that they have, unfortunately. With
True.
A few people in the past like that. Especially from like 2023, there were some fantastic wrestlers I would have liked to have seen back, but they kind of just booked them for that singular tournament. Adam Brooks was really up there in my mind, but
Brooksy
did not bring him back, and maybe it's just the Aussie bias there for me. But
nothing wrong with that.
Marufuji, I think, would get some key wins, but nothing crazy. Keno, like I said, alive up until the very last night. Inaba, I've said before, I think gets some key wins, maybe some upsets, but nothing enough to really kind of get him in the finals. Morris, much the same. I think that Morris largely goes up against Ozawa on the final night, though. And I think being on the final night, there's a chance that Morris upsets Ozawa and prevents him from getting to the final. But my prediction is Ozawa beats Morris and therefore advances to the final. I think him and Keno tie for points, but then Morris gets Ozawa gets the final.
Yeah.
Sort of thing happened there and kind of mathematically makes his way to the block. And so final, of course, being Ozawa and Kaito in my standings, but I'm curious to see how you see this and the sort of how you think B block goes and how that factors in.
My storyline for Marufuji, I think every single match until the last night where he beats Ricky Knight Jr., as I think they will politic to have bring Marufuji over to Rev Pro when that happens. So I think Marufuji, he shows that he's not there anymore. I think that's his reason for being in the tournament, to kind of be an unofficial passing of the torch. But I still think he needs to win over Ricky. On the last night, Ricky, Jack, Ozawa, Keno are all alive. Keno and Ozawa are tied at 10. Jack and Ricky are at 8. There. Galeno upsets Keno to knock him out. Keno also beats Ozawa in the tournament as well. So they're tied, but Keno has the edge tiebreaker-wise. So Galeno plays spoiler on Keno on the last night. Keno doesn't need a national title shot, so it makes perfect sense. Inaba and Harutoki are tied at 4. Inaba gets the win on the last night. They both have a couple of wins, but nothing too crazy. Galeno's at 6. He gets his win over Keno. That makes him. Finally, Ozawa, Jack. It comes down to that. Basically, I have both A and B block. A block comes down to Kenta and Endo. B block comes down to Ozawa and Morris. And in this one, Ozawa gets the win. So for me, it's Endo versus Ozawa in the final at Corcoran Hall 2 days later. And for you, you have Ozawa and Kaito. So both of these tell stories. As I said, there's never been a resolution to the Ozawa and Endo storyline. I think they're going to do that and then kind of build to Jack later on. If anything, I can see Jack seconding Endo and maybe forming a new faction coming off of that as well in the finals. With you, Kaito and Ozawa, a long-term storyline. Who do you got winning the whole tournament?
So a couple of things there. I completely agree. Keno defeats Ozawa again because I don't think you have Ozawa take that just yet. And you have a nice scissors, paper, rock set up between Keno and Kenta and Ozawa and the others as well. Because, Ozawa hasn't been able to defeat Keno before, but he has defeated Kenta. Kenta has defeated Keno.
Keno's never beat Kenta, so...
Keno's never beat Kenta. And, Ozawa has beaten Kenta.
And Kenta's never beat Ozawa. Yeah.
So it factors nicely right there. So put that in as well. And you don't give away the whole game just yet in the tournament. You have some things happen though. And I think one thing that happens here is, Ozawa and Kaito pick up where they left off in January. But they sometimes like to have these, your rematches later on the year down the stretch. But again, eventually we will see Kaito defeat Ozawa and kind of exercise that particular demon. I think that has to happen one day. But today is not that day. I think Ozawa is the guy that they view as, their big draw. I think they understand that he's still quite young and therefore they can't put everything on him immediately. And, you kind of have a long and lengthy title reign. But in some ways, I think in Japanese wrestling, they view tournament wins as almost even being bigger than your titles. And so I think...
True.
Yeah, having a title win or a tournament win, I think, is in some ways more important than even the GHC title in this instance. So, you put it on Ozawa in this case. Give him that big honor of having the win. And then from there, I don't particularly know, but there's interesting things that you can do do you have Kenta defeat Ozawa and therefore exercise that particular demon? He hasn't been able to beat him yet. Mm-hmm. Do you have Ozawa again beat Kenta and once more be GHC champion and kind of close out the year like that? It sets up interesting either way. I don't have much of a horse in the race as to who the winner of that match is, but I do think it has to happen. And I think it's a rematch from the last time they were in the Ryogoku Sumo Palace. So again, I can see something kind of similar there. So that's just my predictions. What have you got for this one?
I think like that's all a great point, and I love the idea of Ozawa like both losing to Kenta because it established Kenta or getting the belt back to set up their major match in the New Year show.
Yeah,
which has to be on the mind of the people running the company. But for me, we know, or well, at least in the past, the N1 winner has not challenged at the New Year's show. They're usually pretty quick about it, sometimes even just a couple of weeks. I hope they give it at least a month to marinate. But for me, everything you said was true, and it's exactly the reason why I don't want Ozawa to win it right now, because it's the one thing that he hasn't, I want him to have something to accomplish and something to strive for in the future. We saw a similar situation with Kaito in the past, where they held off on giving him the N1 until he was, he had won the title first. Now he could do his thing there. Ozawa, I think that's going to be the thing he strives for going forward. And maybe when we see a radical change one day. I'm going with Endo. I'm going with the outsider to get the win here. Put that in the history books that you can always have it in the tournament. That way it legitimizes other outsiders in the future after some of the struggles Dragon Gate guys have had in the past. And he's kind of a Noah guy at the moment, at least. I also think if you want to do a title match with him, odds are he'll go back to DDT within a few months. So you really need to do it now. Like, you're not going to have a second chance, possibly, unless he decides to stay. Again, that's not impossible. I've heard they want him back. So it may be up to his, the ball may be in his court. So it's not a given that he'll leave, but I think you got to go with what you can while you have him. You can get around to Jack afterwards and resolve his feud with Ozawa, and that can lead to a major match. For the New Year, I could easily see Kenta and Ozawa being the New Year's match more than the match after the tournament as well. So I would like to see where they go. I love the title scene right now with Kenta, and I think the tournament has a lot of great matches we've set up and previewed fully here. And I really thank you for taking the time with me.
Man, thank you for having me on it. I'm sorry that we kind of have had so many, how much time between drinks, you know what I mean? Like, there's just been too much time since the last time I was on here. So glad that we could do this again. It's most overdue, and it won't be as long between.
Yeah, you'll be back soon. Like, I want you to cover this tournament with me at least after the final, at like the latest here.
Oh, absolutely. We should definitely do it. Do you want to do a final review?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like the absolute latest will be you back in the final. So get used to that, everybody. Another free show with Dr. Jonathan for everybody. Maybe we'll formulate something either during or after that then for us to do on the Patreon as well, because we've done some really great shows on there with the Muto stuff and everything else. But before we get out of here, you got anything you want to say? As you know, the tradition of the Eastern Lariat is that we don't have plugs on this show. I'm very morally against it. Yeah. But for this time, I will let it slide for you to talk about everything you've got going on, because I know for a fact you have a lot of cool stuff, and you've done a lot of cool stuff already. So anything you want to say to everybody, and then we'll let you get on out of here. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
Of course. Man, thank you. Well, yeah, as much and like, plugs are horrible. No one should ever do them. Definitely, I wouldn't do that for my books. Ganbaru or the Muto Years now available on Amazon. So yeah, I won't be doing that. Yeah, I've also got the Noah book still in the works. Hopefully have more to say about that regarding release date soon. By the time
as I understand it, not to jump on your stuff, Jonathan, but as I understand it, I know about some of the contributors you've got. I think you, and one in particular I've seen, is like one of the greatest, most respected, genius level minds. I couldn't believe you got him for this book, and I think you know who I'm talking about on there. And I couldn't believe it when you told me that he was going to be in the book, and I think the people their minds are going to be blown.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the most handsome as well.
I think like you definitely have your like sort of wrestler brain fully engaged to you in terms of like self promotion. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Dylan Fox is in the book. As are some other people that haven't done as much.
It's not just me.
Wrestling. There's been some people that have done nearly as much as Dylan did. There was Marufuji, Sugira, Jack Morris, and a couple of former wrestlers, Mike Modest, and as well as that, a couple of other people. I won't sort of give the whole game away, but yeah, definitely quite a few mix there that have done nearly as much as Dylan Fox has.
I definitely think we're all on very similar levels. I would say I'm not going to say I was number one. I'm saying let the people decide, Doctor. We have to let them decide for themselves. But I'm very happy. I was very proud that you came to me for that, and I can't wait to read the full thing. I know my parts in it, but I want to read everybody else's thoughts, and mostly all of those other people that I would rank higher than myself, in all honesty. But it was a great honor. I can't wait for everybody to read it and everything else you've got going on. If you haven't picked up his other two books, I mean, what are you doing? If you care about the history of Japanese wrestling, and specifically All Japan Pro Wrestling after the split, man, they are two amazing resources, and I couldn't recommend them higher enough. So thank you so much for that. You are a wonderful guest and always welcome anytime on to this show, whether I'm on it, Stringer's on it, we're both on it. Whether it's just you just want to talk to yourself and send something in and say, hey, put this on the Eastern Lariat feed. I'll let you do it. It's no problem.
All random.
Yeah, no rules whatsoever. Talk about anything you want, and I will find some way to do it. So thank you so much. Thank you, the listeners, for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy all of the great N1 victory action for Pro Wrestling Noah. Check it out on Wrestle Universe. It's going to be a bona fide hoot. But we're going to talk more about that in the future. I'll cover it on Patreon by myself. The good doctor is coming back, and we'll talk about after the finals as well. Me and String are going to do something soon, and I've got a special show next week as well regarding the 25th anniversary of Gaia Girls with me and Nella de Angelis. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully, you're all safe, all happy, because I love you. And until next time, sayonara.
Bye.